the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
To be the best, one must beat the best. Ovals, road courses, the streets of iconic cities, race after race, the top sim racing IndyCar stars will battle it out. In sim racing, it doesn't get any better than this. This is their battleground, for the checkered flag, for the glory, for the right to say they are the best. The cars and stars of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, presented by Butt Kicker, are ready to race.
It's been a dominant season for the Lionheart King, Adam Blocker. In his quest for a fourth consecutive IndyCar title, Blocker has been challenged but asserted his position at the top with 8 wins in 14 races, including a show-stealing victory last time in the Butt Kicker US 500. With Blocker missing the next 2 races with real-world commitments in the NTT IndyCar Series, can anyone step up to fill the void? The IR-18s have touched down in the land of the rising sun. This is Motegi, and this is the HyperX Twin Ring 200. Hello, and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of the Lionheart Racing Series, powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, delighted to be joined in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth for the second time this week for Lionheart action by Justin Prince. You can follow along with live timing and scoring by heading to racespot.tv/timing, powered by our partners at ATVO. Follow along with your favorite team and drivers. TV cameras provided today by RaceSpot's own Tyler Maxson, as well as some additional car cameras. But let's dive into our Butt Kicker pre-race show. Justin, what a race we had from Michigan International Speedway last time around. It was a photo finish at the line. Adam Blocker now has 2 of the Triple Crown races to his name. Looking set for potential history if he can also win an Auto Club, but there's still a very long way to go before we get there. Still got a couple of races in the month of September here at Twin Ring Motegi, and then in 7 days' time from Iowa. The important thing is here, with Blocker trackside with Ilmor Engineering in that NTT IndyCar Series, it's a chance for Connor Harrington to try and close the championship gap.
If I'm Connor Harrington, I have a star next to this race and the next one as a result, because you never know if you're going to get the opportunity to be able to get a chance for a win like there is these next 2 weeks. You make any major mistakes, it may end up costing him the championship and any chances realistically of that. But keep in mind, tonight's race could be difficult to try and score good points at, Arjuna. Trouble is expected to be afoot. Remember, when the Retro Series came here just about a month or 2 ago, that was crazy. We're expecting some craziness tonight.
We try not to talk about the calamity that was the Retro Series race here. 5 wide does not work out, it turns out, in those Lotus 79s, about half the field taken out in the opening 10 laps or so. This is a track that Connor Harrington has plenty of experience in. He won 12 months ago, has led plenty of laps, but ultimately what's most interesting about this particular race, Justin, is the fact that iRacing, being an ever-evolving service, had an update this morning which has thrown some of these drivers and their practices all for a toss. A bit more grip, a bit more speed here today. People weren't sure if there was going to be much passing at the front, but I think now with that extra grip, that extra speed that we're going to see, that means more dirty air, means everyone in the pack has to adjust to that just that little bit more. We may be in for a very entertaining race, 200 miles here in the land of the rising sun.
Yeah, that's going to end up shaking things up indeed, and we were talking a little bit about that before tonight's action. Some of the lap times 6 to 8 tenths quicker than before the iRacing update, so that extra bit of grip means you're able to carry more speed, be able to have a little more on throttle time. At the same time, drivers gain a little bit more confidence when they get extra grip like that, so it's really going to shake things up in terms of who's going to have the confidence to send it around the racetrack and make some bold moves now that they have a little bit more grip to make sure it sticks.
And we're racing here virtually in Twin Ring Motegi very early in the morning. It means that as we go through the race, it will heat up the track. It will make it that much more difficult to keep your tires under you, and keeping on top of your in-car adjustments is going to be crucial. Let's talk about our driver standings presented by Butt Kicker. Now, these do factor in our drop weeks, Justin. It's a long 22 race season, and you get a couple of the drop weeks, which remove your lowest points totals from each of the rounds that you don't want to have in there. And so 14 races done, 11 weeks have been counted. It's only a 100-point advantage, but because Adam Blocker has been so consistent, top fives dating back to September of last year in Chicagoland, even though he misses 2 races now, he knows that he's got the benefit of not having to rely on his drop weeks. Ultimately, it's a 2-horse fight between Blocker and Harrington, and then you have Bennett, Kinsella, Chin, and Otis in a very fun fight for third.
Here's the thing with Harrington, though. While Blocker has the luxury of having a few races to have to drop with his prior commitments, Harrington doesn't really have that same luxury, Arjuna, because he's DNF'd in the 2 races that don't count for drops, and every other race has been a top 5. In other words, he has one more major race mistake, gets involved in any sort of incident, there goes a lot of opportunity right there. And in turn, you may see Bennett, Kinsella, Chin in turn have that carrot on the stick to say, we might be able to leapfrog second here over the next couple races. In other words, it's so critical for Harrington, it's so critical for Bennett, it's so critical for the rest of the pack to be able to survive these next few weeks, especially if you want a realistic chance at a top 5, let alone the championship.
And of course, some strong names have shown themselves off this season. Of course, your Retro Series champion in 2020, Ryan Otis, making the transition to the IR18 and learning just how stiff the competition has been in 2021. Really, this IndyCar Series has taken a major leap forward with so many strong faces, both on the road and ovals. Here's a look then at your team standings presented by HyperX, and because of some good performances in the Triple Crown double points races, the gap between Adrenaline Motorsports Red and Private Label Team Hype has come down, but Private Label Team Hype, Justin, they now have a new element. Philip Kraus, who has finished second in both of his IndyCar races so far since joining this series only a couple of weeks ago. He's not going to add to the points total. He's representing a different Private Label Team Hype organization in these standings. But what he does do is take points away from Bennett, from Kinsella, from Carey that are trying to reel in what is almost 150 points.
Yeah, and at the same time, you get the counterpoint for why that's the sake of helping Private Label Team Hype is, while it may take points from our drivers, they also have extra bits of data. They have someone else in addition to help them in their stable, to work with in the races, to be able to sync for strategies, and in turn, give themselves representation up at the front. So there's a lot of thought processes in turn you have to think for Private Label Team Hype. For the rest of the groups, though, it's going to be very tight, I think, for third on back the rest of the season, I will say, with some of the LPM cars, with some of the Oakentech Simulations cars being able to take some gambles, and of course, Adrenaline Motorsports Black has had some of their drivers up towards the front as of late. So we could see a bit of shuffling over the next month or two, I think, in those team standings, I don't see it staying pat, third on back, similar to what we see with the driver standings. It's going to be intriguing how it all plays out.
Really looking forward to this run that we've got ahead of us into that final round at Auto Club Speedway all the way in December. Plenty of racing to go. Here's a look at your butt kicker rookie standings. Henry Bennett has managed to build a dominating 100-point advantage here. Jason Brophy very much started the season off strongly, but has had a bit of a struggle, I would say, in the recent couple of races. Not necessarily performing badly, just some bad luck, especially in that double points race last time at Michigan. Has enabled the likes of Matt Taylor, Lionel Kalisto, Mike Rasmus, Aaron Morgan to close on up. Only about 33 points separating second through sixth positions. Be interesting to see how these guys go, because we know the likes of Taylor, Kalisto, Rasmus, and Morgan, Justin, plenty of experience in other Lionheart competitions.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of great performances in Retro Series action for Mike Rasmus, for Morgan in particular. You can also throw Indeed Taylor into that grouping. But keep in mind, there's a lot of drivers with some momentum in those various series too. One of the main talking points throughout the campaign for the past month and a half has been Chris Fowler. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get some good points today, with him having the right mixture of aggressiveness and speed that has just seen him accelerate from mid-pack early in the season to being one of the front runners for about a month and a half across all three series.
I also think Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who had a very good run this past Monday from the Pocono Mountains in the Speedway Series, might step up here today. He's had torrid luck across all his Lionheart ventures in 2021. Let's talk a bit about the Lionheart IndyCar Series with our series details presented by Minus 273, the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz, and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders. I mentioned it earlier, Justin. I'm going to repeat it now. An update to this very car this morning has thrown the drivers and all the ones that have done significant practice before today for a toss. Lots of work for them to do. And while it might not change the overall characteristic of the car, what it does do is change how the car itself is going to race. It's now got the setup hasn't changed much, just a bit different on the gearing to enable those greater speeds, and staying on top of your in-car tools, front and rear ARBs, the weight jacket that moves weight up and down on the car as well, going to be crucial here today.
If you don't keep up with them, you're going to be in trouble. It's been a critical point throughout the season. Take, for example, a few months ago, when Ryan Otis qualified up towards the front of the Milwaukee Mile. When he ended up starting off that race, he ended up going too conservative on the tools, struggled to be able to regain the track position he lost in turn as a result of those adjustments. So in our words, you need to be willing and need to know your exact timings on those adjustments, unless if you want to have that shot. In turn, though, with that differential now, with the new updates to the racetrack, that's going to really indeed shuffle about how some of the drivers may fare out and some of their approaches to this race, especially for those who may have not had the track time prior to a couple hours ago on how this new surface will feel.
And so let's talk a bit about the history of Twin Ring Motegi in Lionheart competition. A third trip to this very track in 2021. All three Lionheart sanctioned competitions had visited this wonderful oval with various degrees of success. Speedway Series came here on their series opener, and like Justin mentioned, a bit of a calamity when the Retro Series came here. Only one driver has two previous victories at this track. Can Jason Galvin make it 3 with only 16 laps led coming into this one? A race as well that has never seen pole position make its way to HyperX victory lane. It's also a race, Justin, that's seen not many lead changes. That's back in the season 1 of the IndyCar Series with just 2. It's also not had too many cautions, only 5 a couple of years ago, with the closest finish coming 12 months ago. Look at that margin, just over 1/100th of a second.
And keep in mind, with how this track can be, and especially the impact of aero wash we've seen throughout the campaign, Twin Ring Motegi in turn might be a track where if you line yourself up right on the exit of turn 3 and 4, you might be able to make that drag race run to the race lead, because that's been the case for some of these races. Strategy was also critical, keep in mind, when the Speedway Series came here to start off their campaign. You see with this track as well, much wider a little bit in 1 and 2. It's similar to Darlington in terms of shape. The banking a little bit more flatter compared to 1 and 2 in terms of how you handle it, but it's very fast down that back straightaway. Lots of big runs we've seen can come into play entering turn 3 with that tight camber. It's going to be tricky, though, to stick the bottom and make sure you get those tools adjusted to be able to exit properly if you're side by side.
Track built in, opened, I should say, in 1997 with the principal focus being bring IndyCar to Japan, develop an oval racing program for the Japanese manufacturer. Its inaugural race was a kart race that Adrian Fernandez, a driver with Lionheart history, did win. It took a long time for Honda to finally take a victory here. The Lionheart himself, Dan Weldon, won in 2004. Plenty of history at this track, Justin. A track where Danica Patrick won in 2008, one of the few women to win here in the IndyCar Series.
And remember the emotions from back in that time. It was a race that was a staple to the racing landscape back in that time. But today, it's the question of who can make history in Lionheart action, because Twin Ring Motegi, we expect it to be wild. These drivers will be tested with some of the updates today, and now it's the matter of who's been able to find and maximize the most amount of speed around this circuit. Those who didn't get that preparation in, you'll see them struggle a little bit probably early on. Wait for the track to grip up. Some of them, though, may say, track is cool, it's morning time, it's time to go time early on compared to when it gets hotter on that track later on this race.
Qualifying comes to an end. It is Robert Malechka III that has put it on pole position for the 3rd time this season. Let's go trackside in the land of the rising sun and take a look at our starting grid here in Twin Ring Motegi. So here is your butt kicker starting grid. Malechka III victorious on Monday from Pocono. He looks to do the double in Lionheart competition with a 27.291. Philip Kraus second in both of his IndyCar races so far in 2021. He's looking to take victory now that Adam Blocker is watching on from the sidelines. Henry Bennett starts in 3rd position in his 07 machine with the King of Chins completing row number 2. Mike Rigney looks for a good run here with Tony Schowen completing row number 3. Top 6 separated by just 0.06 of a second. Alexis Newsom has had a bit of difficulty in recent Lionheart competition history. Can she bounce back and deliver like we know she can? She line up inside of Tyler Graf. Lap times there almost identical. Jason Brophy, Aaron Morgan on the edge of the top 10 with Connor Harrington defending race winner. Plenty of work for him to do back in 11th spot. Brian Carey, the Canadian, has some new equipment by his side as he looks to try and bounce back from some technical failures of his own, with Chris Fowler, Chris Lanini 13th and 14th. Michael O'Brien, Matt Houston share row number 8 with Joe Brunch in the Coca-Cola machine inside of Paul Jenkins in the 35 Aero X racing car. Christopher has had a very busy couple of days, 3 races in 3 days for him, with James Brandt 20th, Luis Gonzalez Nunez 21st, Matt Taylor 22nd, Stefan Larkamp 23rd, and Jason Galvin, 2-time race winner here, looking to make it 3 on the season. Barrett Rolfe in the 33 car, hard charger, but qualifying continues to just elude him. You'll be inside of Adam Fraser with Brian Beard, Andrew Kinsella, row 14. Ron Hacker, Dustin Wardlow complete the top 30, with Mike Razumaz, one of the first cars not to set a qualifying lap time. AJ Musselman, Ricky Harding, Scott Holmes, and Ryan Otis. Plenty of work for these cars to do from the back of the field. As always, we have a number of onboard cameras to take a look at today. Let's walk you through our featured cameras as the cars roll themselves off on pit road. First up, it's Mike Rigney who has the Clipping That Apex onboard, your home for custom motorsports art. For more information, visit clippingthatapex.com.
With the SimXperience onboard camera, it's Christopher. SimXperience, maker to the AccuForce Pro V2 direct drive steering system. For more information, visit simexperience.com.
From the outside of the front row, Philip Kraus has a HyperX on board. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game.
And for understandable reasons, it's Tyler Graf with the Graphics Esports onboard camera. Graphics Esports, world-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphics-esports.com.
Justin, prediction time. I was confident with Robert Malechka on Monday. I'm going to say it again. It's going to be very difficult to pass here. I think Malechka III will take his first IndyCar victory.
This may seem like a boring pick, but Philip Kraus has had momentum. His first starts, second place in both of them so far. Won't be surprised to see him be a contender all night.
Competition, commitment, excitement. This is Lionheart. We are in Twin Ring Motegi for 200 miles in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. Let's get green flag in the air. Track position going to be very important. Henry Bennett already passed Philip Kraus. Turn 3 and 4. Sometimes you just brush the brake on entry as too wide just behind Mike Rigney and Tyler Graf side by side. Malechka III, though, will lead lap number 1. Henry Bennett, Philip Kraus, Joshua Chin, and Tony Hsiao in the top 5.
Nice clean start. What many were hoping for tonight's action, but keep in mind, some of these drivers are willing to make some aggressive moves like Graf to try and get this track position early, up 3 spots already, and doing so by sticking the bottom right along that white line and taking that groove away before the drivers can react.
Brian Carey has to defend from Chris Fowler in the NHR Esports machine. Connor Harrington, lots of work for him to do, though. Still outside the top 10 in a race where we're not expecting too many passes, at least in the early stages. Michael O'Brien and Chris Lanini side by side. Turn 1 and 2 is flat out. Not always preferred to be on that outside line. A little bit more distance that you travel. And here comes Lanini looking to the inside of 3 and 4. Gets on the brakes, though. This is where getting that car turned in, Justin, is going to be so important. O'Brien runs that high line. Should hold on to the position.
And you see where the high line come into play. If you can use that exit a bit as the ramp to get a bit of momentum, you can make the outside at times indeed work through 3 and 4. Keep in mind, though, Connor Harrington's not having the start he's been looking for. He's still stuck in 11th, nearly snapped the car around just a lap ago, still marred in this traffic jam.
Even further back, it's peak hour traffic in the early mornings here in the land of the rising sun. Jason Galvin runs then in 17th position. He's up +7 from where he started. Incredible start for him. Someone I kind of expected to make a few more moves is Barrett Rolfe. We saw him about 10 positions gained in 5 laps on Monday, not able to get that same sort of charge. He's where he qualified in 25th position. Gonna have lots of work for him to do. Meanwhile, out front, JP, here we go. Malechka III leads by half a second. Henry Bennett has also pulled an 8/10 advantage over Phil Kraus, so it's what we expected. Very difficult to pass out front. We are seeing more side by side as you go down the order.
Yeah, this is something we've seen throughout the campaign. If you have the error wash and dirty air from the respective competitors, you see a lot of this infighting, but in turn, if you fight too long in this grouping, you end up losing a ton of time and in turn, losing your chance to draft up to some of the error cars. And you have to clean air like at the head of the field, like Malechka III in. A little bit for Bennett, who is still sniffing some of the dirty air from Malechka III. Helps you turn a little bit more, be able to have less tire wear in turn. So there is that benefit in turn of having a good qualifying run, and that's why drivers like Malechka III put a lot of emphasis on that qualifying performance, as we see how some of these drivers are losing some time with some of this infighting.
Jason Brophy slides down the inside of Tony Hsiao. That 88 car in action yesterday, or rather, I should say Brophy in action yesterday as part of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series. Crew chief for Matt Busa, and now has to defend as Tony Hsiao will come back down the inside, ripping that white line, but Brophy with that momentum will hold on. The gap between Kraus and Bennett has opened up even further at this point in time now. Justin, it's almost 1 full second. A bit surprised to see Kraus struggling this much early on, but I do wonder how crucial saving your tires is going to be over the course of today's race.
Especially since we talked about this a lot already, the track is expected to get hotter and hotter. For reference sakes, it is 81 degrees Fahrenheit on lap 9. So that temperature is expected to skyrocket the more the sun comes up, the more the air temperature picks up. So that's going to be very critical. So at this point, I don't think Philip Kraus is really panicking, knowing he's in a decent spot. He's still in third spot. There's no need to really panic. You've got the track position. It's just a matter of waiting to see how things fare out later on in this race. We see 13th.
Lanini Fowler duking it out with Jason Galvin, now +8 on the day. That 42 car, only 16 laps led, but 2 victories. I've said it before, I didn't think it was going to be as pertinent at this racetrack. You only have to lead 1 lap, and that's the last lap of the race, but clearly Jason Galvin just understands what it takes to be fast at a track that is very different at both ends. 1 and 2 flat out, as Alexis Newsom has now gotten passed by Jason Brophy. 3 and 4, of course, slight braking down, sometimes even into third gear to get that car turned in and get the car rotated on exit at this point in time. Bennett's doing a great job. Only 6/10 away is Malechka III when the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship came here earlier this year in what was an open setup race. It was difficult, to say the very least, Justin. I mean, Jason Brophy led. He wasn't even able to get past lap traffic. That's how much difficulty he was having, as here comes Connor Harrington looking to that high line. Might open the door for the car behind.
Yeah, that's Mike Rigney bully down there trying to make the move. Harrington just continuing to stay boxed in, but keep in mind, we've seen that at times throughout the season. If the traffic isn't friendly to you, you end up losing heaps of time. Phoenix is a great example of that, because when we've seen each of the Lionheart Series go there to that track, you get within that 1 second of that aero wash and dirty air of the car in front, with that being lap traffic. Your lead can evaporate from, say, 3 seconds to 1/10 in the span of 10 laps. So it's going to be very critical to hope all the traffic goes exactly the way the race leaders need it to go if they want to maintain or try to even expand the gap throughout some of this traffic. There is a lot more space, keep in mind, compared to Phoenix, obviously.
Just a little bit more space. I think that's a bit of an understatement. Barney the Flagman has a great view of all this action going on. And a race that's only had a maximum of 5 cautions, don't necessarily think we're going to get too many caution interventions, as Brophy now attacks the back end of Tyler Graf in the -273 machine. +3 on the day right now, and you can see on the left-hand side, not just Jason Galvin making some waves in the early stages. Matt Taylor in the 16th position, also +6. Ryan Otis from the back of the field is now up to 28th spot, so he's really hustling that machine at this point in time. Interesting to see, though, someone like Joe Branch, -10 on the day, so qualifying pace doesn't always translate into the race performance, as Brophy slides through turns 3 and 4 and gets that spot away into the top 5.
And we talked about this a little bit with the struggles of late for Brophy. Keep in mind, a lot of the struggle races have been tracks he usually tends to struggle towards. Road courses. He is not the best of a road course racer when it comes to Lionheart competition. But when it comes to ovals, though, that's his expertise with his work with the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series to know how to build with that respective NASCAR Cup Series package. So it's so critical in turn, that expertise, to cross over to ovals such as this. Meanwhile, we see the battles going on in the heart of the pack, getting very racy still. This is again for 20th or so, and they're still losing sure heaps of time with all this. They've lost a few tenths as a result of this infighting again.
On board with the Synergy Motorsports car of James Brandt, that was Luis Gonzalez Nunez, who they were side by side with. Like we said, Nunez really did perform as Chris Stouffer takes advantage of that infighting. But get on pass for 21st position. Nunez was having a great run in a caution-free affair from Pocono. Unfortunately, just contact with some lap traffic instigated not by him, but Nick DeGroot, coming into the final 10 laps or so, dropped him out of the race, and from a top 5 finish, found himself on the outside of the top 20. But definitely strides being made as Nunez now gets on past Paul Jenkins. Interesting to note, Justin, just how much this pack is being separated right now. You can see leaders coming out of turn 1 and 2 down that back straightaway. Last car in line, AJ Musselman, just coming across the start-finish line.
Yeah, 15 seconds separating first to 35th. And keep this in mind as well. The lap times are slower at the back of the field by up to half a second right now. So a lot of these competitors are just struggling with that aero at the moment in the midst of these trains and some of this traffic, with it being some of them close together. With Malechka the third, along with Henry Bennett, they've got the space to just kick their legs out, up on a lawn chair, and stretch, try and get themselves nice and calmly around the racetrack, make sure they don't burn up the tires too much. Just maintain pace and maintain distance with one another, especially with how this race could play out.
Yeah, it's a very different race if you're out front versus what we're seeing right now is the Coca-Cola machine gets checked up. Caution flies for the first time today. And oh, it's that Synergy Motorsports car for Jay Brandt, the number 15. Front wing lying stricken on the track. So 20 laps in the books, and pretty nice run there, Justin. About halfway through the fuel window. It would be interesting to see who comes down onto pit road this time around as we turn our attention to the RaceSpot TV replay machine. Brandt down to the white line. Car doesn't... Oh, there we go. Maybe a bit too much weight jacker there. Spins out of turn 4. Noses into the wall. And some damage then for Jay Brandt to contend with.
Significant front wing damage. At least going to have to change the wing, as we'll see from on board. He's elected to go fourth gear for 3 and 4. But there's that weight jacker just snaps around, and that's why you need to keep up with the changing conditions with the racetrack. You don't get the right adjustment in for the right moment, your car likely is going to snap around just like that. Keep in mind, this caution flag actually comes at a significant time of this race. Drivers were expected to have 3 pit stops throughout the day, with the latest one of the windows going about lap 117. The fuel stint's estimated to be 39 laps, so do your math. That means it's a 2-stopper from this point with us running more than 20 laps.
It's going to be interesting. We don't necessarily think tires are going to be crucial, but here we go. The field is down onto pit road, led by your leader, Robert Malechka. Henry Bennett, Kraus, Chin, Jason Brophy complete the top 5. Now, will we see any car elect to stay out there and try and get the bonus point that you get for leading a lap? Yes, you can see left-hand side of the screen. Matt Houston, Paul Jenkins. Very, very brave. Oh, did something happen to Chris Stouffer as well during that incident, Justin? Because he's now down at the tail end of the field.
Curious on that as well, because he was in a significant spot. I think, you know what, I think he had situation-wise going on. We might have to look at the tape on this. He got loose the lap before in turn 1, rode the apron the entire way around, and was just coming back on track when the caution flag came out. So he nearly wrecked this right before.
Oh, that is a good look. I think Barrett Rolfe might need a change of overalls come the conclusion of this race. Just watch here as he enters turn 1. That, I think, is just symptomatic of that weight jacker. Does a great job to hold on to that car. Now the contender for Save of the Year in Lionheart competition, and so that's what's dropped the Indiana native to the tail of the running order. My, oh my, some great saves we saw today. Although I think maybe Stouffer, yeah, still stationary on pit lane. Might be day done for him. We'll have to wait and see, because like a number of drivers, not just racing in speedway competition yesterday, but racing last night in other IndyCar action. Matt Houston, Paul Jenkins staying out there. And I think we're going to get the one to go this time around, Justin. I believe they'll be staying out there as Stouffer does roll himself off of pit road.
I'm a bit intrigued with this call. Essentially for these two, they need a caution at about 20 laps. Yeah, at about 20 laps at the very latest for this to work, because as mentioned, everyone can make it on 2 stops from here. And I'm curious how the tires hold up now with them in clean air. This is a bit of a bold call. I'm surprised both of them elected to stay out here with this, even though it gets them the track position. You're banking on someone else making a mistake and it not being you for this to work.
And now we'll get that indication, Justin, of what tires are going to be like, because come the end of this race, who knows who is going to gamble? I mean, this is where you gather that data, you decide what you want to do, right? It's all just building up for those final 10 laps or so when, if a caution flies, do you decide to come down? Only these 2 cars, though, so it's going to be interesting if Malechka, if Bennett, if Kraus can get on through here. We'll come back with 24 laps in the books.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see them being decently defensive now with the dirty air going to be fed to the drivers with fresher tires. This restart going to be very informative for some of the drivers later tonight.
Here we go then. Matt Houston, Paul Jenkins at the front of the field as Barney the flagman waves that green flag. Already, Alexis Newsom pops herself out trying to attack the King of Chins. They'll work side by side in towards turn number 1, building up that speed, just now ticking past 300 kilometers an hour. Newsom has the position, slides up the track as well. Might be able to hold on, but now 0.6 of a second separates these cars from the ones in front. Chin looks to the inside, just try and get that position back. Here we go, though. This is where I'm going to keep my eye on, Justin, is Malechka. Already about 0.3 clear now of Henry Bennett. How much can he do to close onto the back of that 35 car? Paul Jenkins in front of him.
If anything, Henry Bennett closed up more and watched to the third with a significant amount of speed. Bennett seeming like he's very confident, but just got a sniff of the air wash. I think behind him, though, Phil Kraus may have tagged the wall.
Kraus is down behind his teammate, now down behind Newsom, so indeed some troubles for a driver that has been so strong, but Bennett powers down the inside. Bennett takes over the net race lead as Malechka, the third, drops to 4th.
I don't think Malechka, the third, though, is going to make this easy. Bennett, though, has that advantage to squish on down Malechka, the third, to try and get a pole.
Not going to be enough. He's going to have to do it now through turns 3 and 4. Still side by side, allowing the cars in front to build their advantage. 0.8 and counting from Paul Jenkins in front of them. Bennett powers, though, around the outside, holds on to the position. Don't know how much I'd feel confident about fighting side by side if I was these competitors at this point in time. But once more, Justin, let's take a look at the RaceSpot TV replay and see if we can pick up what happened to Phil Kraus. There you can see as he shuffles his way down the track. Dirty air from both Malechka and Bennett. Keeps his foot in it and indeed knocks the wall down, and he'll be hoping not significant damage, just momentum lost for the 22 car.
Yeah, that wall doesn't move very far. Let's put it that way. Significant amount of contact on the right side, and that's seen him shuffle all the way to 8th position. I'm very curious on how that affects the straight line speed, because we've seen it at Michigan, for example. You hit the wall, you're likely losing some top-end speed as a result, even if it doesn't show, like, graphical or physical damage on the side pod.
Jason Galvin now up into 16th position. In front of him, Chris Lanini. Matt Taylor right behind him. And new thing we can do here on RaceSpot TV, we can take a look at your live championship points. Now, these don't include those drop weeks, so it's just adding the points totals to what we have coming into this round. So Blocker still 793 points. Connor Harrington running in 10th would only close to 63 points behind. Henry Bennett would build an advantage, while Andrew Kinsella, Joshua Chin, and Ryan Otis, no positions changed. Andrew Kinsella still mired in the mid-pack, now 24th after another car not enjoying the best of qualifying runs, Justin.
Yeah, this has all turned out to be intriguing to start things off, but in regards to Kinsella, absolutely just could not get a qualifying run down, even with all the work helping prepare these cars for everyone else for tonight to make sure they were ready to go. So I wouldn't be surprised, though, to see Kinsella try and roll the strategy dice later on if it so comes to play. But if you're Harrington, based on the numbers we just seen too, and this again depends on how the drops fare out as well, you gotta hit the go button. I'm not sure where you find the go button, but you have to find it somewhere.
Harrington has gone and passed his teammates, so Kraus really hurting from that damage as we jump on board with Brian Carey in the 79 car. Aaron Morgan attacking Carey's teammate Tony Schowen, who's now looking to the inside of Phil Kraus, checks up everyone's momentum. Carey tries to take advantage. They'll exit side by side. Now watch though. It is full throttle through turns 1 and 2, but dirty air going to be fed as they're too wide, too deep. Carey goes just a little bit higher, trying to avoid that dirty air from Kraus in front of him. There's some contact. Kraus just avoids the wall, slides across it very slightly. Kraus now down to 15th position.
And Kraus definitely trying to follow that emphasis I mentioned before of trying to pinch the driver on down below you to get momentum off the corner. That didn't work out the way I think he was expecting it, because Tony Schowen started drifting up the track. And that little bit of a drift was what led to the contact. Remember, there's been history between them and some of the private label machines, Tony Schowen and company.
You're referring to the road course races, right? Yes, there's been a couple of contacts this year where Schowen has been lap traffic. Kraus, though, really, really hurting. He's minus 14, and if anything, looking like top 20 would be a great way to salvage the day. He's now hoping for, just like Houston and Jenkins out front, some sort of caution to come out, allow Kraus to come down to pit road and get some of that damage repaired. Incredible how close these drivers are racing, even given the amount of dirty air that we're seeing as Brian Carey now all over the rear end of Aaron Morgan. Gaps building out front, but not as much as I might have expected. Alexis Newsom able to hang on to the tail of Jason Brophy. Alexis Newsom, Justin, really struggling recently in Lionheart competitions, and the place where she's been struggling most of all is on the entry in towards pit road. If we get green flag pit stops today, Newsom needs to execute, because she's looking like a potential top 5 finish, if not a podium, on the cards for her here.
Yeah, Chicagoland comes to mind in Speedway Series competition, where every single pit stop she made, she either sped, nearly spun out, or had to get damage repaired. And you cannot win in any series when you make these mistakes. There's a reason that you work so hard at the pro level on pit road entry and exit. And if you don't know how to execute that and know which amount of time you can really push to get to that pit entry, or be able to take the access road on exit, it will leave about 5-10 seconds back in some cases. And for Alexis Newsom, those mistakes have just added on and on and on over the past few weeks. Keep this in mind. This was informed through race control to the drivers before tonight. It is driver's choice on the pit in. So in our words, that's going to be very critical of which drivers select to go through turn 3, which come off turn 4. Because in theory, the entry to turn 4 is going to gain you a lot of time, Arjuna, but it's also going to be a bit more risky, where you might lock up the tires compared to it being more slower on the apron through 3 and 4.
And that's where communication, whether it be talking to your drivers, talking to the other drivers, communicating via body language of the car, I think that's something that a lot of people that don't race competitively on multiple sims may not understand. Communicating what your intentions are through your body language and your attitude of the car is very, very important. So be interesting to see if we get that 40-lap run, exactly what happens. Matt Houston, Paul Jenkins ticking over to lap 40 on their stint. So pit stops imminent for them as Andrew Kinsella, Barrett Rolfe, two drivers king of not qualifying well. Andrew Kinsella, part of our RaceBot TV commentary team, when we were talking about Rolfe's struggles in qualifying this past Monday at Pocono, he was trying to claim that crown for himself, so I'm going to give it to him. Gets a great run out of turn 4 though, past the 33 of the Ascari Autosport driver, now attacks fellow Canadian Luis Gonzalez Nunez. Side by side they work. I think Nunez will hold on.
And you talk about the luck of Luis Gonzalez Nunez throughout the campaign. If he had no luck, he wouldn't have any of it all, I think, as the saying goes. He has just had a nightmarish time. Every time we've seen him do well, the commentators curse either strikes, or you end up having a ton of bad luck coming into play, like we talked about with Speedway competition. Nunez has been putting it together recently, though, in terms of overall pace, compared to the start of the season, where it was a lot of driver mistakes. Now it's the trouble of getting involved with others' mistakes. If he can try and clean things up to get himself in position not to be in the mistakes of others, he'll be in a decent spot later on this season, I will say that, towards the end of the campaign.
And so, as pit stops will be imminent, maybe this time around for Houston and Jenkins. Old tires. What old tires, Justin? These guys have done a great job to hold on to this race lead. Does give us the indication that in the closing stages, the gamble to stay out might be worth it. They are going to be hoping and praying. They'll be doing that caution dance, because if we go green to the end, they will be in trouble.
Well, the saying in this regard, and I know this one's right, is clean air is king. And that's definitely come into play to where they are running about a tenth or two slower compared to the lead times from Lutschke to the third when he was up front, but they're still coming into play. Here's that pit entry coming up that I'm talking about, though. Paul Jenkins just coming in. That window is now open for the drivers who stayed out. The gamble not paying off, at least for Jenkins.
So Matt Houston likely to come down this time around, I would suspect. And you are going to go a lap down here, so it's even worse. You're in the danger zone, as they like to say in IndyCar coverage. You come down, you put yourself in a situation where depending on how things work out, you end up one lap down and having to fight back from that. So take a look at the bottom right portion of your screen. You can see Paul Jenkins still yet to fully roll himself off of pit road right now. So finally gets himself up to speed. He's going to come out into the thick of the pack. He will have clean tires. Or I should say fresh tires. Also a full tank of fuel underneath him. Merges back onto the back straightaway. Plenty of work for him to do. Houston doing a great job to extend his stint out front. 47 laps and counting, Justin. He is looking comfortable in the race lead. Henry Bennett 1.3 seconds back.
Yeah, if I'm some of these drivers, I'm taking note of this as he's indicated he'll come in this time by. Now it's going to be intriguing on how this affects the mileage for the rest of the way, because there's still 87 laps to go this time by. Based on the numbers mentioned before, it would still be a two-stopper, but say you try and stretch it a little bit forward towards this mark and can get an extra few laps out of the tank, that may end up being a major shuffling here.
So Matt Houston, will he come out in front of Paul Jenkins, or as he goes up on the jack for fresh Firestone tires being fitted to his team race first car, drops off. And here comes your race leaders already. Look at their momentum that they've got built up at this point in time. They are halfway through the run at this point, so 26 laps and counting. Only about 16 or so laps from seeing these competitors making green flag pit stops as well. Very, very interesting. Top 5, Henry Bennett, Robert Malechka, Jason Brophy, Alexis Newsom, and Joshua Chin. They're separated by 3 seconds, first to fifth. Tyler Graf then in 6th position. Connor Harrington has worked his way to 7th. Tony Shawan, Aaron Morgan, and Brian Carey to complete the top 10. Jason Brophy, what a drive from him, Justin. He's +6 on the day right now. That 88 car sitting in a podium position.
Like I said, Brophy is an oval specialist, and that speed has come out and shown itself tonight with how he's been able to attack some of the drivers, but also just how consistent he has been on the stopwatch. His lap times have stayed around the 28.1s, even in some of the dirty air at times throughout the night. And he's continuing to mow on down that gap to Robert Malechka III. I wouldn't be surprised to see him get towards the back end of the 91 if he can continue the pace on up. He did lose a couple hundreds, though, last time by, and is now outside that 1 second margin just about.
And there is a different sort of commitment that goes into eNASCAR Coca-Cola racing, and whatever world championship it might be. I think the experience that Brophy has working with Matt Busa and the rest of the team back there is going to be important in a race like this, because just the mindset, Justin, it is hard to preach exactly how important that can be at the top levels. Just always be committed, never relent from whatever disappointing moments you've had in that battle for the rookie championship. Yes, Bennett is leading the way, but this is the sort of form we expect from Brophy. He might be able to close the gap here in the closing stages of the season.
Yeah, he showcased this early on in the campaign as well. It's just the road courses have made it difficult to gain full momentum, and now that there's the stretch of ovals, this is Brophy's chance to gain that vital momentum I think he's been looking for. Keep in mind, when it comes to the commitment for series such as the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series, it takes a very unique mindset in that to be one of the top drivers in that series or any pro series, even with Lionheart competition in some cases, to be able to be a winning driver, you need to treat it like it is almost a real-world job, just about. With the amount of commitment, the amount of laps you turn, the amount of knowledge, the amount of note-taking, the amount of data you have to put in, and how much, in turn, as a crew chief in that regard, you need to be able to inform your driver of properly what they need to do. You don't have that information, you're running 30th as the car's around.
That's Brian Carey. Oh, and he's almost spun into the path of oncoming traffic. Very, very fortunate. This throws a wrench into the plans of Paul Jenkins and into the plans of Matt Houston. Carey, has he gotten away with damage? Looks like the suspension might be a little bit broken there. I don't think that car is going too much further. Indeed, you can see the right rear tire is not exactly properly mounted to the Dallara IR18 chassis. very much looking squat to the ground. Let's go ahead. Turn 4 has claimed another victim, so clearly the problem spot is that exit of turn 4. A cloud has come over the track as well, so just wondering if maybe not keeping on top of his tools. Take a look here, Justin.
Oh! That is a lack of communication. I think he may have had some more issues under caution. Keep in mind, we talked about this. Communication is critical with the timing of this pit entry, and there wasn't really communication that came through in that case.
I'm wondering if he's having technical issues once more. I did mention that Carey's been suffering from them, and Jason Galvin, who's been on a charge, well, really not much he could do in that body language of the car. Like I was mentioning before, Justin, there's not really an indication until he was slowing down. I don't think Galvin had too much time to respond there.
You pit from there within a car length, you're asking for trouble. And by the way, that incident I was referring to in the live action was Carey spinning around because he lost that tire. He had to put his car on the tow truck. He couldn't get around the circuit with that damage. So day likely over for the 79. And for Matt Houston and Paul Jenkins, the strategy they just took just went bust, as it becomes a tight one-stopper from here.
That's right, they'll cycle to the back of the field, but they'll be in prime fuel-saving position. I mean, we didn't really talk about it, but the ability to lift and coast at this track is crucial. You don't necessarily have to ride the brake. You could potentially gain some time just lifting a bit early on that entry to turn 3. Phil Kraus, I think, has potentially missed his box because he is still stationary there. The issues continue for the Appleton, Wisconsin native as cars roll themselves off of pit road. No changes in the top 5, but I think Connor Harrington has managed to leap over Tyler Graf for 6th position, looking to try and gain some very valuable championship points. So second caution on the day. Typically a track that doesn't see too many multi-car incidents, Justin, and well, looks like that's the case here as well.
Yeah, absolutely, and now it's all going to play out very intriguingly. The situation for Kraus, keep in mind, by the way, he missed the box, then elected to tow to get back to the box. That ended up costing him all his track position as a result of that situation. Unfortunate for Kraus, remember, after knocking the wall down earlier on. But this race lead is going to have a lot of intriguing counterparts now with how the clean air has been factoring in, how Bennett's been able to stretch his legs, but it's also going to be the chance for Brophy to try and pounce and try and move up more spots here.
So 3 retirements, I would say. Christopher early on, Stefan Larkamp a couple of laps after that. Brian Carey might be the most recent of the retirees. 35 cars whittled down to 32 competitors as we head into the halfway marker of the race. Getting word that there was no message communicated over the voice chat in the race itself, Justin, does indicate to me that potentially that hardware issues that I was talking about reared its head once more for Carey there.
And you mentioned the differences, I think, about different equipment. That's one thing you have to make sure to test is your mic working? Because if you, say, get a new mic, you have to be able to change all the settings, get your push-to-talk set up properly if you use a push-to-talk. I think most people obviously do. And in turn, if you don't have that on your checklist and don't realize it until you're in the race, you can't really change it unless you pull out of the car in full. So it's something where you need to have that down on your checkbox list if you want to make sure it's done right.
Absolutely, and I mean, we're talking about the eNASCAR Coca-Cola Series a lot. What, Justin, just let me know if I'm wrong here, but I heard that yesterday Ryan Luza, I believe it was, lost power, and so fortunately had a backup generator that he was able to switch to, a UPS, I guess you would call it.
Yeah.
And was able to complete the race. I mean, technical issues, you might not have engine blow-ups and things like random engine failures in sim racing, but there's plenty of other issues that you can still have to contend with.
Yeah, absolutely. And when talking about the Luza situation, that was a major storyline with all that to try and make sure that he was able to still race, because Noah's father John has a lot of support for Ryan Luza, always supports him when it comes to the Twitch feed for those respective races, and he was actually explaining that in part, how much effort was put in to make sure they can get him racing for that night, because remember, in that regard, he needs to get strong points to make sure he gets top 20, so you cannot afford to miss a race like that. But these competitors for Lionheart competition are getting ready to get back racing in what is now looking like another good old-fashioned fuel mileage race if it stays green.
And I must say, fuel mileage race on Monday at Pocono was amazing. I mean, sometimes the knock on fuel mileage races, they're not exciting, but there is tension that gets built up when you don't know who is going to be good on fuel. It is Bennett, Malechka, Brophy, the top three. Barney, the flagman, gets that green flag back out there. This is that opportunity for the top three to make some moves. Connor Harrington looks to the inside of Alexis Newsom. The private label Team Hype Machine has 3 cars now in the top 6 positions. What can they do to work together to try and get their championship contender up the field and up into those very high points-paying positions? No change for 1 and 2. Jason Brophy now looks to the inside, but I think more just trying to run a slightly different line as Connor Harrington gets on past Alexis Newsom.
Look at Brophy, though, got a great run off of turn 4. Malechka had to back out of the gas, getting loose. Brophy up to 2nd position because of that mistake. And now that teamwork definitely coming into play. Chin has a lot of pace right now, and it looks like Brophy's doing what I thought he would do. Trying, while Fall Bennett also feeds some draft to Chin down that straightaway, and now takes the different line to avoid giving some dirty air to that front wing.
Brophy now +7 into 2nd. Bennett and Brophy both searching for their first career Lionheart IndyCar Series victory. Can Chin follow around the outside this time of Malechka the 3rd? Oh, there's almost contact. Malechka has to get out of it. That should open the door for Connor Harrington.
And there's Chin moving down to give some draft to Harrington down that straightaway. Exactly what Harrington needed now with that point situation. He needs more, though. I think realistically, Harrington needs to get himself to the very point of this field. And now Chin's trying to help him, but looks like down these straights and in turn, Harrington's trying to get the clean air.
So now it is Adrenaline Motorsports out front. Private label Team Hype, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Factory backed, still running in 5th and 6th, but Robert Malechka looking like it's going to be a lot of work for him to do the double in Lionheart competition this very week. Let's take a look then at those live points numbers. Gap will have come down to 50 points, but of course doesn't completely factor in those drop weeks. Henry Bennett has built up a bit of an advantage then over the likes of Kinsella, Chin, and Otis. It'll be interesting to see what the gap is to Jason Brophy in that fight. Here comes Connor Harrington, full of momentum, full of confidence. And speaking of confidence, here comes Jason Galvin, +15, Justin, now into the top 10.
Having that contact doesn't seem to really hamper him right now from that 2nd caution flag. He just seems like he's got the mantra of stick to the bottom, everything will work out. Stick to the bottom, the pace will come to me. Stick to the bottom, I'll make passes. And he's been able to do all sorts of passes, it seems, throughout the night. Also been able to gain some time on pit road. So Galvin has been executing very well. Now here's the tough margin. Can he get around Morgan, Graf and company to then see if he can close up the deficit to that top 6?
Taylor is +11, but Andrew Kinsella +15. Biggest mover, not Barrett Rolfe like we've become accustomed to here at Lionheart competition. Instead, it is Mike Rasmas in that 68. A driver fighting for the Lionheart Retro Series Championship as Andrew Kinsella puts himself into contention for the biggest mover on the day, looking now to get past the 00 of Mike Rigney. Let's talk then about our sim experience driver profile. We've got one that we're going to talk about here being a driver, then we've got some second track stats that we're going to talk about as well. Jason Galvin, 127 starts, 49 top 10 finishes, 26 top 5s. Started back in season 3 at Homestead, Miami. First victory came at this very track just a year later. Who can forget, Justin, the emotional victory that Galvin had at Phoenix this very year? He's not really had the best of luck. He's also missed a number of races, but always quick, always competitive on the ovals.
Absolutely. You, as a fan and even as announcers here, have to give him credit. He does a lot of broadcast work, keep in mind, across North America as well when it comes to racing. And you see that love of racing come out whenever he's at the racetrack, especially when it comes to Lionheart competition. He is someone that is very clean when it comes to his lot of moves. He can get very emotional at moments, of course, but you can tell the passion is there for every single lap to try and complete every lap and put himself in contention for a race win.
And so now let's talk a bit about this track itself, because, well, a number of the drivers were a bit concerned yesterday in the aftermath of some of the practice races, as Kinsella now comes under attack from Matt Taylor, 2 drivers up double-digit positions. 11 total starts in Lionheart competitions here in Japan, 48 total cautions, total for 144 different caution laps. I'm sure there's plenty of commentators' curses being thrown into the mix there. And you mentioned that race, the Retro Series race that we had earlier in 2021, Justin. 7 cars finished on the lead lap.
When I was watching that race, my thoughts were, is this real? How do we have 7 cars on the lead lap? My goodness, why did we go 5 wide for the race lead down the backstretch on lap, and we're not even at lap 20 yet?
Yes.
That's a conversation for another time on why that doesn't make sense to go 5 wide on lap 20. But for the Retro Series race, it was almost similar to that of almost Indianapolis in that regard when it comes to those cars. Like a super speedway almost of sorts, where you can take it 2 to 3 wide if you're bold to do so, which everyone seemed to be very bold to do so. Today, a bit more calmer.
A little bit, but by no means have we seen a lack of racing action. And you compare it to Indianapolis. Yes, for those who didn't watch the Indianapolis 250 earlier in the season, they missed the almost 4 wide finish that we had there. But for those who are more accustomed to stock car racing, Motegi and that Lotus 79 kind of race like a stock car at Daytona or Talladega, and 5 wide within 10 laps of the green flag. Not ideal, not wise, and really did make for an interesting race, which you can go and catch on RaceBot TV. Meanwhile, let's talk about some of this action out front. There's not much of it. We are looking at almost 2 seconds that Henry Bennett has built that advantage to Jason Brophy. Almost 1.5 then back to the King of Chins. Connor Harrington sits 1 second behind his private label Team Hype teammate, with Robert Malechka trying to follow but struggling at this point. Justin getting to, now past I should say, that halfway marker of the race.
Yeah, everyone just starting to spread out and spread their wings amongst the field. Bennett is like a rocket man in terms of his pace. 27.8 at the moment. Everybody else 1 to 2 tenths slower than that mark. And wow, this has helped get them some clean air for once among another. Keep those fuel numbers in mind, because again, with the timing of where that caution came into play, it could be tight for a couple of the competitors. As long as you don't overstretch your bounds, you're in a good spot for this mark.
One more pit stop here in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. No Adam Blocker, a new race winner we will have here in 2021. Don't go anywhere on RaceBot TV. We'll be right back in a few moments' time. Hello and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and coverage of round 15 in the 2021 Lionheart IndyCar Series. It's the HyperX Twin Ring 200 as we head to Japan and the Twin Ring Motegi Oval. Such an interesting track that has put on a fascinating race with drivers having to contend with an update to this very car earlier today. My name is Arjuna Kankipati. Alongside in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth is Justin Prince. And Justin, we had said at the start, track temperature was going to rise. It was going to become increasingly difficult for drivers to follow in dirty air. You can take a look at these track conditions there. Track temperature now above 30 degrees Celsius.
And keep this in mind for those who keep track in Fahrenheit, that's a +6 from that mark. We started in the high 20s in regards to Celsius, so those temperatures continue to pick up as the in-sim time approaches 8 a.m. here at Twin Ring Motegi. In turn, we've seen those hotter track conditions mean drivers struggling a little bit more to keep that power down and some of the aero wash coming into play. And now this is to where it could be crunch time for some drivers, while others crunch their right side pods into the wall there.
Did Kinsella just get away with that one, or did he just knock down the wall out of turn 2 there?
I can't tell if he brushed it or knocked a hole in the side pod. At the very least, I believe he might have cracked it.
Can't really tell from there. Let's see if we can take a look from Matt Taylor's viewpoint. Side pod looks okay for the time being. We'll have to wait and see. Right behind these guys, some side-by-side action. Mike Rigney, Mike Razmas dueling it out for what is 13th position out on track. And a race that has seen no lack of passing opportunities, and some drivers able to take more advantage than others. Connor Harrington has worked his way up the field, knowing that his main championship rival sits watching on from the sidelines. You can take a look at that point situation now, looking at a 51-point deficit, not factoring in the drop weeks. Still potential, though, for the defending race winner in that 44 car to work his way up the field, with green flag pit stops only 10 laps away at this point in time. Jason Galvin, two-time race winner here, only 16 laps led coming into this one, and still only 16 laps led given where he qualified, plus 15 into 9th, while Razmas in that 68 car, biggest mover on the day, and someone who I think is going to be quite frustrated with how things have gone, Justin, is Ryan Otis here in the 95 car. The Retro Series champion has managed to take advantage of some mishaps, take some advantage of some passing opportunities, but still only sits in 21st position. Yeah, he has only been able, for the most part, been able to take advantage of the attrition, and that's been his main sticking point for a lot of these positions. For Otis, you definitely feel for him, because he's had the pace in a lot of the races, 9 top 10s in the campaign, 6 top 5s, but tonight, it just hasn't been there. No qualifying time being put in for various reasons, and now he's serving the punishment for it at a track that's been difficult to get the job done after about 15-20 laps on the tires. We've seen the effects of that, and in turn, he's been really impacted and hampered by that as we see some of the other drivers continue to shuffle about amongst the mid-pack. That's Barrett Rolfe, who's going to try and slide his way up the track, but O'Brien doesn't allow him that opportunity. Rolfe usually is a great opportunistic driver, able to take advantage, work his way through the field, but has struggled early on as the caution's out once more. This changes everything. And who is it that has come to a stop? That's Jason Galvin in the 42 car. And turn 4 has claimed another victim, and this time it might have been the split part of, I think, weight jacker and possibly just snapping it loose. Like the second he snapped loose out of turn 4, his car overcorrected hard into the wall to the outside. Hardest impact by anyone all day today. So let's ride on board with the thumbs up, cancel down machine, and there you can see little snap of oversteer, not much he could do, and I tell you what, good job to keep that thing up the track as, oh, Michael O'Brien has to slow down. Not sure he really would have enjoyed that experience. Let's take a look at it once more, getting very low down and arcing himself into the corner. Smacks the wall down. I tell you what, let's try and get a look on board with Andrew Kinsella there, because he had a great view of that stricken car in front of him.
Yeah, you're going to see a great angle of this right here, because Kinsella, he's taking this line to get some clean air to the front wing, try and be able to rotate a little bit better, plus he's side by side. And then side by side backs off just enough for him to be able to arc it on down without any incident. Kinsella gets by cleanly, and oh, by the way, remember the Thoughts of Fuel Mileage race? That drumbeat just intensified by 5 times.
And it's really a fuel mileage. There's nothing else now. We'll get back to the action with 41 to go, so maybe a slight amount of fuel saving that we'll see some of the drivers needing to do. For example, Henry Bennett, who has been running out at the front, sometimes maybe having to just bump that car down into a slightly alternate fuel map. Who's going to win the race off of pit road? Can Jason Brophy steal it? No, he doesn't. But Connor Harrington has leapfrogged his teammate, so Joshua Chin will now sit in 5th position. Harrington 4th. Philip Kraus did stay out there, but I would suspect has to come down this time around to get some fuel in that car, because he's 34 laps and counting, Justin.
He was running in the 20s before the time of the caution flag after his incident with the wall, having to tow after being in the pit box ahead of him, and in turn getting some of the damage in theory repaired. Here's the thing. If he does indeed come on down to the pit lane here, that's one more lap of fuel than everyone else, and that may be in part the difference if it ends up becoming that razor thin margin that we are potentially expecting in these closing stages. But remember this, the drivers who stayed out early in the race could push it as hard as 47 laps on their initial stints.
Did include the one caution that we had, so.
Yes, exactly, and that's why I mentioned that. So there is that chance a lot of the drivers may have to save a touch bit, but it's not as difficult, say, of if the caution came out 2 laps earlier, then right. I think there'd be a massive panic.
Gotcha. Well, and we should mention those 2 cars that stayed out there early, Justin, because it really hasn't worked the way that I think they would have wanted. Now, Paul Jenkins sits in 26th position, overcome 25th with Kraus down on pit road. And Matt Houston will be 27th position. He'll be minus 11 from where he started. He had a great qualifying performance, and you make those gambles sometimes. They just don't play out in your favor, and, well, he's still now got, 41 laps to try and fight back from it, but it's going to be an uphill struggle. I think we might even have 40 to go when we get back to the green, because lights are still on the pace car.
Yeah, I believe that's because Jason Galvin in particular, since that would in theory have a car lap down either way. This all is going to get to where being the race leader could have its benefits, of course, with the clean air, but it also could limit how far that driver could push. So it's going to be a bit of cat and mouse, I think, at the start of this run, but let's put it this way. You get one more caution, then those concerns go away.
Did Andrew Kinsella get an end-of-line penalty, Justin?
I'm pretty sure he might have.
Because I just noticed that Kraus has gotten past Andrew Kinsella even after coming down onto pit road. So interesting. Day goes from bad to worse. He started back in, 28th position? Had worked his way up in towards the top 10.
He was in the top 10, yeah.
My, oh my. And he's coming back down onto pit road, so I think now he's realized that the only thing he can do is come down, get his tank filled up, and just go pedal to the metal from here, because the lights are off on the pace car. It will be 40 laps to go in a car that has a 39-lap fuel window. So Henry Bennett is now in a very difficult position, if you ask me, Justin.
Yeah, this could be tricky depending on how quick he ends up trying to launch off and away and try and break the draft of the others, because if he goes too hard, he puts himself in a fuel concern. If he's able to find that right balance, then I think you don't panic too much, but keep in mind you burn more fuel by being in that clean air compared to, say, being in the draft of some of the other cars. So that's definitely going to be a thought process here if I'm Henry Bennett. Do you want to keep the race lead, or do you want to try and make sure you get that gas for sure to the end? You have to find that balance and know how to save that fuel in turn.
And the lesson that we learned early on is tires do not matter. So if we get a caution, you know no one is coming down. Henry Bennett is playing this very, very interestingly. Usually you'd run all the way up on the outside of the wall to make sure no one can pass you. But here we go, 40 laps to go in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. It is a private label Team Hype, second, third, and fourth. What can they do to help their championship contender work his way out front? For the time being, not much help at all. Here comes Joshua Tin to the inside.
Yeah, they look like they're trying to race for as best a position they can right now and then settle it on down. Chin definitely not making it easy for Harrington at all. If anything, that's going to cost him a little bit of time, but that's scrapping. Bennett, by the way, leading nearly by 6/10 at the stripe. He's ran away.
Now can he build that buffer up and pull away? Harrington under pressure from your pole sitter. Malechka the third. Almost contact between the two of them. Harrington will defend the inside line, but we've seen on occasion that momentum you build up on the outside can just work. It will afford Malechka the over-under, just a little bit too far behind for the time being. Nothing doing there. Some more fighting back in the pack as they exit turn 4 side by side. That's Chris Fowler inside of Mike Razmas. Two drivers that have been duking it out in the Lionheart Retro Series. Now switching from the Lotus 79 to the IR18. Matt Taylor sends it around the outside in the Altentec NHR Esports car and give Taylor 11th position.
We talked about this in the Speedway Series. When the track rubbers up, that's Matt Taylor's time. The track is rubbered up. It's not as green as it was before where it had no rubber. And in turn, Taylor's been able to take advantage of that, and now he's in towards his comfort zone. Even though the track is hotter, that rubber helps your car a little bit more in terms of the consistency on your lap times and how you, in turn, make your way around the racetrack. And it's also something that can impact how the lines play out around this circuit.
Oh, here we go. This is crucial. Connor Harrington, can he hold off the charge of the pole sitter? Malechka side by side for 4th position as they work their way through the flat out turn 1 and 2. I think Malechka just gets a little bit squirrely, has to give up some momentum, gives up the challenge for 4th place. Out front, 1.2 seconds clear, is Henry Bennett, searching for his first Lionheart IndyCar Series victory. 36 laps for him to hold on. Some fuel saving might be on the agenda as teammates side by side. Look at Aaron Morgan trying to get on past Tyler Graf.
This is one of Tyler Graf's best races all season in all Lionheart competition. I will say Morgan having a very solid race as well after some of the very bad luck he had at Michigan with some of the incidents. So it's been a very nice day for some of those LPM machines and how they've been able to play out. We talked about that for the team standings. They're positioning themselves very well for that, to be able to gain that momentum for the next couple weeks.
Morgan gets a good run off of turn 4. I don't think Graf is as comfortable at that end of the racetrack as the 48 machine, who will look back down to the inside. Rule number 1 in racing, do not hit your teammate. And when it comes as well to drivers fighting it out in the championship, Morgan looking at potentially a top 10 finish. Of course, the team championship as well on the cards. Potential battle for third that Graphics LPM is mixed up in. Do not think these drivers want to come to blows as Razmas now attacks Matt Taylor, who has gotten on past. You said Taylor just comes alive when that rubber builds on in. I think he just becomes so much more comfortable with himself as well, and I think that's so important in a race like this where everyone's on that same setup and it's all about your confidence. Yes, you have the front and rear ARBs, that weight jacket that will come into play, but how you use them is just as important as when you use them. As here we go, it's O'Brien side by side with Rigney, Joe Branch in the popcorn seat.
Now that's a great fight amongst these competitors. Rigney's been trying to get this job done, it seems, since the past couple restarts. But it's just not been any bueno at that point, as Joe Branch trying to take advantage of that in his Coca-Cola machine. No bueno in that one either, but keep in mind, that's the difficulty when it gets hotter and hotter too. You lose that grip. That grip continues to go away and away and away. As Barrett Rolfe says, it's time to go forward on my march.
He's trying to get him to the top 15, which I don't think he'd be thrilled by, but definitely would be better. We talked to him on Monday, didn't we, Justin, and asked him about that qualifying. It's just something that it's very different, qualifying versus race. Sometimes you just don't put the preparation in, and working by yourself doesn't necessarily lend itself nicely, because with those in-car adjustments, you can do some interesting things to build up some speed, as I heard a car going into the wall back in the pack.
Oh, I think there's a car slow on the track. Yes, a couple, and that's going to shake things up.
That changes everything. Ron Hacker, I think, is that car that has brought out the caution, the 21 machine, straight down onto pit road. Everyone is good on fuel from here on out.
The thing is, it didn't start directly with him. Ryan Otis, we mentioned his struggles, slammed the wall in front of him. And then in turn, when he seen him, he just snapped around hard to the inside. And because, though, it was Hacker who stopped on the racetrack to be able to get the tow, that's your trigger. Here's what happened to Otis. This was side-by-side in front.
Oh!
There goes the weight jacker, a bit of oversteer, bye-bye.
Not for the first time. Kinsella's had a moment there, watching some chaos unfold in front of him. Let's take a look at the onboard first with your defending Lionheart Retro Series champion. There you go. Quick hands, but not quick enough for the 95 car, and around she goes. You can see some significant damage to the Synergy Motorsport silver car. Here's the view from Hacker's perspective, who I don't know if he's responding necessarily to the incident in front. It just sounds like he had the throttle pinned to the floor, and it turned around on him there, JP. I
mean, having the foot for the throttle pushed down like that, especially when you see a car spinning like that, kinda is not the best situation, because here's one of the trends when it comes to iRacing when you think about it. You have a car that gets a little bit loose in front of you, the car behind gets a lot loose, and the car behind that gets very, very loose, and then everything else goes okay. So that can really shuffle things in terms of how the car feels when you get a car loose like we've seen with Otis, and I think it almost spelled back towards that mark. By the way, 21st on back, elected to come down and take tires here after only 15 laps total on that run.
I don't mind this call for some of these contenders, because deeper in the pack, I think the tires will make more of a difference, especially in the amount of dirty air that we're dealing with here. I think out front we saw clearly not a big factor. I think back here, going to be more important. It will be Barrett Rolfe, Adam Frazier, Brian Beard, Andrew Kinsella, and Dustin Wardlow, the first 5 cars rolling out with the fresh tires. The last 5 on the older tires will be Chris Lanini, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, Matt Houston, AJ Musselman, and Paul Jenkins. So at least for Houston and Jenkins, their gamble didn't pay off, but they've cycled them back at least into the mid-pack. Plenty of time to go. Is that Kinsella with another end-of-line penalty here? Or is he just now trying to get into line appropriately?
I'm not quite sure in this regard, as I think he might be trying to get back in a line proper, yes, because he actually sped off and passed several drivers for a moment. So I think it's just him getting back in the line, which was 24th position here. But now this gets very fun, and we mentioned the importance of clean air. Those drivers in the back might be able to get a few positions as a result of this call, but it's not going to be easy sledding to be able to get that job done, with the fall off being minimal for some of these competitors, only a few tenths.
Lights are still on the pace car, so it'll be 25 to go and we get back to the green. This is going to be the opportunity for Jason Brophy. If he doesn't get the move done now and a caution doesn't come back out, say bye-bye to Bennett, say bye-bye to your first Lionheart victory.
They have to. Brophy has to be able to get the job done. And with the fuel not being a concern too, it should be worth noting, you can hear the fuel burn coming into play too. So those weights of how much fuel is in the tank also weighing in on some of these drivers. You can see already some of them already revving in first gear. So Bennett's played this out very well since he's taken the race lead on how he's done the starts. Some intriguing decisions, but it's played out well. I don't know, even if you time it up well with your Brophy and company, you get that run you need to around Bennett unless you find a way to jump.
And for Bennett, I mean, racing in the very early hours, Justin. He lives in the UK. has had to almost adjust his sleep schedule to participate in this series. 14 starts coming into this race, 5 top 5s, 10 top 10s, just 1 pole to his name. Best finish, 3rd place 3 different times. Let's see what he can do here. He's in control of this race so far. Very much looking like he might be able to dominate these last 25 laps.
That's been the trend, right? You get the race lead, you're able to run off and away, and that was why it was so important before when drivers tried to stay out to get the swap done with the effect of dirty air, and that's where some of the confusion in turn came into play, in my opinion, where Malechka III had a great opportunity to control the pace. He didn't elect to take said pace, and Bennett said, you know what, if you're going to ride 10 miles an hour slower down the straight, I'm just going to pull on by, and that's now been one of the most critical passes of the entire night so far. But we've seen crazy things happen. Let's see if the craziness does strike, as some of the drivers weave out a line to the back of the line.
What does Bennett do on the start? I was a bit confused by what he did last time, not running up to the wall, but I have a feeling it's just minimizing the distance and trying to get in towards turn 3 as soon as he can. Less than 40 miles to go here in Twin Ring Motegi. It's a long hold from Bennett. Back to the action, 25 laps to go. That causes a huge stack up. They're almost 3 wide entering into turn number 1. Connor Harrington needs to try and get past Joshua Chin, needs to try and get past Jason Brophy to close the gap to Adam Blocker in that title fight. But look at Malechka with the run, ducking and diving. They're 3 wide on the entry into turn 3. Malechka down the middle, and Malechka to 3rd place.
What a dive by Malechka to the 3rd. The question is, can he make it stick? No, he knocked the wall down again as more drivers starting to snake their way out. But that was an intriguing decision at the start. Bennett did the same things before, but Jason Brophy said, you know what? If you're going to try and run to the bottom line, I may as well try and get to your rear wing and follow you too. And that has just inserted a bunch of craziness. I think it played exactly how Bennett might have wanted this to go.
And once more, he's built that advantage to 7/10 of a second. I saw Tyler Graf almost clipping the apron. Caution, back out. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, well, you said it. If he didn't have any luck, if he had less luck, he'd have almost no luck. And now, once more, significant damage to that 14 machine. Cautions do breed cautions. Let's turn our attention to what happened here between Nunez and, I believe it's Chris Lanini in the 92 car. There is the yellow, orange, and black machine. Working their way off of turn 2. Lanini gets a great run down into turn 3. And oh, that's an interesting one. It didn't look like Nunez got that car turned in time, Justin.
Yeah, it just looked like he struggled on turn in with the aero wash in the tires tracks of Rigney. Here's the particular look. Yeah, it just plowed on him massively.
So, season goes. The luck for the season, I guess, goes the same way. Let's take a look one more time at what happened here. There you just get the briefest of looks as we'll cut back to live and cut back to what will be, now I believe, a 20-lap shootout here. Cautions breed cautions, and we've already tied the most cautions that we've had in an IndyCar race here at Motegi. That goes back to season 7. Adam Blocker victorious then. 5 cautions in the 130 laps. Getting word as well, Henry Bennett, busy bee. Having to adjust his sleep schedule, not just for this race, but another one at this very track as well. Not in the IR-18 chassis, but the DW12. Already 1 victory then on the night, or I guess the morning, for him. Can he make it 2 for 2? Still interested and curious as to the thought on the restart, Justin, that he has, because usually we've just become so accustomed to the cars running themselves up to the outside wall, holding as long as they can. But it's an interesting one, as Ricky Hardin to the grass, at least for the time being, has spun under caution.
I believe he might have gone hard on the wall as well, pun intended, and I'm intrigued on this one yeah, that's a hardware failure. That is a definite hardware failure. That's got to be something with the steering wheel just ends up having a split-second glitch of sorts, where you're just using it and without warning, you have a glitch in the sim and then it just swirls your wheel like that.
It's almost as though his wheel disconnected from his PC, which we've seen on occasion here at RaceSpot TV. It's not something we're unfamiliar with. So heartbreak then for Ricky Harden. Was running in 24th position at the time. Going back to what I was saying though, Justin, we'll become accustomed to it. The car's running up to the outside wall. I think this is working as intended though. He's causing these huge stack-ups in the field. No one wants to pass him and get a penalty. I just don't know if we get more and more cautions if you're going to risk someone timing it up perfectly and powering around your outside.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought process is you almost know where he's going to go, but the problem is absolutely you don't want to end up passing the leader at the stripe. He's almost tempting it because he knows if you get to the bottom underneath him, you're likely taking the lead with how the trend has played out for some of these drivers tonight. So it's a bit of a psychological play, I will say, in that regard. It's almost like, take for example what stock car side in official racing. You have a lot of drivers who try and time it up to go on pace cars. Some go in between. And then you have the stack up method where you wait for the green flag, where your hope is everyone wrecks and you end up taking the checker flag once the race gets to its conclusion because everyone's bunched up.
And we were talking about the screaming engines last time, Justin. The engine noise has intensified once more. Plenty of fuel burning going on up and down through the field. And that's crucial because heavy car means slow car. So we started this run before the last couple of cautions thinking that it was going to be a fuel save for some of these contenders. No fuel saving now, maximum fuel burn.
Absolutely, and this is an art form too to get this done right without overheating the engine or blowing it up. So these drivers have to be able to know those exact margins of how to do that while keeping an eye on their engine temperatures to make sure they are still in peak optimal form. You don't want to end up popping the motor trying to burn fuel under caution.
So here we go. It will be back to the green this time around. Plenty of excitement in the land of the rising sun here at Twin Ring Motegi. The odd egg-shaped oval. Turns 1 and 2 flat to the floor. Turns 3 and 4 getting on the brakes. Henry Bennett leads from the private label Team Hype contingent as what's happened. There's a second car that's had an issue coming to the green. This time it's Chris Lanini. That will not stop the show. Pace car is down to the safety of pit road. 30 miles left in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. We are racing once more. Henry Bennett gets a wonderful launch. Look for the charge from Connor Harrington. He knows points are crucial here today. Tyler Graf into the top 5, one of his best runs on the season. No changes out front as we come down into turn 3.
And the tough part has been, even with the draft, Brophy and company has just not been able to close up the deficit at all. Bennett just seems to know his margin of the track, but Robert Malechka the third, he just can't get that high line working out of 4. Tried it again and again failed. Graf is now set up really well for a pass.
Can he slide up the track and pass the King of Chins? Momentum for that purple car. It's close, but not close enough. Chin should power around and hold on to 4th spot. Gap already now, half a second between Brophy and Bennett for 1st and 2nd. Shoots up to almost 7/8 tenths of a second as Malechka gets very, very wide. The pole position sitter might now drop behind Aaron Morgan, who looks to the inside.
Near contact again with that outside wall. Malechka the third just cannot seem to get the grip together when it comes to this aero wash, and it is costing him again in our position loss, losing that preferred bottom for 1 and 2. Meanwhile, Graf, I think at this point you have to think he's hungry for a podium. If he can hold off Chin's charges here, he might have a true shot.
He might just throw the kitchen sink at this race because best finish 5th at Indianapolis this season. He wants to keep improving. A man who does so much in terms of graphics design for the series, but Chin will power through on that inside line. gap between these cars and the group in front now up to 0.7 of a second, so a little bit of clean air to be worked by these contenders as they go side by side. This time Graf to the inside will slow his momentum through the middle of the corner, but gets the power down nicely, gets the run, but not enough to defend, I think. Still, Chin will have to now try and fight this one back. We've seen the outside becoming increasingly strong over the course of the night.
Yeah, and 1 and 2 in particular with the ability to pinch on down. We've seen how dangerous it can get, though, as a big crash on the front.
Cautions breed cautions. The Candyman gets mixed up along with Scott Holmes. So, 6th caution of the night. Wardlow loses it by himself, and the frustrating day for Philip Kraus continues. Nowhere for him to go. Let's take a look on board then with Scott Holmes in that Sector 5 machine.
And you can see, wow. How about climbing over top the Candyman in that regard? It looked like Wardlow, another driver with a bit of a weight jacker issue, causing some oversteer, trying to push hard. And Holmes, yeah, nowhere to go. You do not have any time to react in that regard, as he nearly became a rocket ship.
And so while we're looking at these replays, I tell you what, let's go take a look at what happened to Chris Lanini, because I am very, very curious as to what happened here. Was it technical issues? Or, ooh, no, damaged car, I think, because he had come off the pit road after being involved in that last caution. Justin, I think, realized that car just had a bit too much damage.
Yeah, I think at that point he's like, okay, I'm just going to tow. I can't go any further. So that seems to be the case there. But another restart coming up, and Bennett still continues to maintain control. For a lot of these drivers, you might need to try and pull off a Carl Edwards to try and get the pass for the race lead done at this mark with how Bennett's played this.
So it's about timing. It's about timing and trying to get the run. Harrington, crucially, has worked his way to 3rd. Take a live look then at the point situation as things run. Gap would be under 50 points, not including the drop week that Adam Blocker will have in his advantage. Henry Bennett then a further 100 points back, but building up an even bigger buffer from Kinsella, from Chin, from Otis, who, despite the fact that he's not going to finish this race after being mixed up in our 4th caution on the night, will still hold on to the 6th spot. So here we go. I believe it will be 11 to go when we go this time around. Engines scream once more in agony because the fuel burning is going on. Does look as though the trend continues in that pole position won't enter HyperX victory lane. It is not unlikely, I think here, Justin, that we finish under the caution for only the 2nd time in what will be a 7th race here for the Indy cars in Lionheart competition.
I mean, we are starting to lose more and more cars due to attrition. I will say that, but I think there's a decent amount of confidence. If you get enough lap stretch together, you can at least try and run this green. The difficult part is a lot of these drivers have tires going through various heat cycles. I think that's definitely going to be a bit of a factor for how this is going to go. But as these lights, it appears, stay on, this is appearing to be towards not 11 to go when the restart comes, but possibly 10. So this could get fairly exciting in the mid-pack again for this restart.
Yep, 10 to go. I've heard from some of our competitors, by the way, Justin. I think Phil Kraus might be done for the night after that latest incident. And he said that he didn't finish 2nd, because of course 2 races, 2 second-place finishes behind Adam Blocker. He considers this a win. I don't necessarily see that logic, but at the very least I can understand his frustration as to how the night has gone.
He technically beat Adam Blocker.
That's true. Technically he does beat Adam Blocker, so I guess you could put that to him. Robert Malechka, who started on pole, now sits in 7th, has also said he hates this track.
Well, I mean, with Malechka the third continuing to slide on back, I can see that feeling and sentiment, especially since that 2nd groove has not been working for him at all in 3 and 4, so it's just not been Malechka the third's night at this rate, with the track getting hotter and the rubber. It almost looked like he was better with the greener track.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was a bit more comfortable, I think, early on. let's see what he can do. Of course, this track not really hosted much racing recently as the lights go off, so it will be 10 to go when we go racing next time around. We did mention at the start, opened in 1997. In 1998, CART came here for a 300-mile race, won by Adrian Fernandez, a driver with some Lionheart heritage. When Honda first took a victory at this track, the track that they built with the intention of bringing oval racing to Japan, it took till 2004, so 7 years on from its opening, and the Lionheart himself, Dan Weldon, did take that victory. Then in 2008, Danica Patrick became the first woman to win an IndyCar race, beating the 4-time Indy 500 winner, the ever-popular Helio Castroneves, for what was her first and only IndyCar win. So here we go. It is just over 15 miles. We've had 6 cautions so far today. Would not be surprised if we get a couple more before we decide our winner in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. Henry Bennett has controlled the later stages of this race. Can he control another restart? The pace car's down. Green flag is out. Already the King of Chins trying to get that position back on Tyler Graf as they're almost 3 wide coming across the start-finish line further back. Graf on the inside has some dirty air to contend with. What can Connor Harrington do, Justin, to get on past Jason Brophy?
Well, he's going to need to time this up to be able to get along side by side from what we've seen throughout the night. Here's the attempt to try and get that run. Just cannot get fully along tire to tire. And Brophy is not making this look easy. I think there's a chance, though, he tries to go for a bold send if it comes down to it, even with it being a teammate at this rate. He's trying to get that ramp here.
On board with the 44 car. He's having to lift out of the throttle. That's going to check him up. Does it feed him into the path of his teammate? The King of Chin's going to be very, very nice and not be too aggressive. Some action further back. It's Alexis Newsom and Tony Schowen side by side, at least for a moment. Newsom now defends from Chris Fowler in the number 20 car. Single file across the start-finish line. Those track temperatures have continued to climb, Justin. It is now a very warm track here in Twin Ring Motegi. We started at, what, 6 o'clock in the morning? It's now 8:30 in the virtual track.
Those keeping track in Fahrenheit. It's gone up 11 as one car head on.
Jay Braun brings out the caution. My word, that was a high-speed impact straight into the inside retaining wall. And for the 7th time today, the caution is out. It means we will have one more chance at getting this race to a checkered flag under green. And let's take a look now on board with the Synergy Motorsports black car. He's running up in the line. What's going to happen here? Just up the track he goes, knocks down the outside wall, slams into the inside wall, and we end up under caution once more.
That was at 140 miles an hour, the impact to the inside wall. Just the second he ended up taking it outside, that car was gone. And the intriguing part is, even with him pushing up, it almost looked like he didn't even lift until he realized in only half a second before, oh man, I'm about to smash this wall down like it's not there.
One more chance. And that is up and down through the field. One more chance before we see this race ending under caution for only the 2nd time in 7 visits in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. Take a look at the left side, Justin. Look at some of these movers. Plus 14 for Matt Taylor. Plus 22 for Mike Razmas. Then you've got the muscle man who's plus 16. Very impressive drive for him after starting at the tail end, not setting a qualifying lap time. Andrew Kinsella has recovered after what we think was an end-of-line penalty. He's now sitting in 18th position, plus 10 on the day. We started with 35 cars. We're down to just 22 on the leading lap. Do have 3 extra cars still out there and circulating, trying to get what they may from this race.
At this point, one of those drivers you can put a star next to is Ron Hacker. Remember his incident, Arjuna? He kept on going despite losing several laps, and He's been able to gain several positions because of all the errors crashing. Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he got involved in that big incident before, 7 laps down. Guess what? He's been able to pass by all those who have built up attrition for the past 20 or so laps, and he might get a pretty decent finish. They can finish as high as possibly 25th, 26th positions now, or rather 24th, 25th rather, as a result of that situation. But in regards to the front, I will say this, Arjuna. As long as Bennett doesn't make any major mistakes, he's just got to be able to keep it off the wall and keep it clean for a couple laps to go.
And so, yellow, the lights are still on, so at best, we're looking at what? It will be 3 laps? So basically, the next caution would end the race.
Exactly, we're at that point of no return coming up with the next yellow flag. So in our words, for Bennett, you're just saying, as long as I don't make a mistake, caution flag or no caution flag, it's my race to lose. If you're Jason Brophy, you're screaming, please make a mistake, I need a chance.
Well, and I wonder if Connor Harrington is saying over the radio to his teammate, let me go, I need the points right now. Brophy is still in a championship fight of his own, but I think everyone, other than Adam Blocker and the rest of his teammates, wants to see a fight. It's been 8 wins in 14 races for one single driver this season. Harrington is going to need the luck of the gods to try and challenge, even though the points look fairly close when we look at them, Justin. You mentioned it. Harrington's drops are all DNFs, races where he's really not scored. For Adam Blocker, most of his drops are now going to be races that he's had to miss because of his real-world commitments.
Exactly, and Harrington has talked about the pressure before, and it weighs a lot down on you where you have no room for error. Harrington's among those who have scored top 5 essentially each time he's gotten a good finish. He looks at the very least in a position to do that. But here's the thing. You have to weigh the costs and the benefits of trying to challenge your teammate who is looking for one of his best finishes of the entire season and say, do I want to risk it all? And if I get into an incident, that takes me out of the title fight. That has to be thought of too.
And so lights are off on the pace car here. 3 laps to go. We've had 7 caution interventions. Will we have an 8th to close off the night? Last time Twin Ring Motegi hosted the IR18s for Lionheart competition, the margin of victory was 1/100th of a second. We are definitely not looking at that. The addition of the aero screen, the new tire model that came into effect after Motegi and that race in 2020 has really changed things up, Justin, but still put on a really entertaining race that has challenged the drivers to the edge of their abilities.
You can definitely tell a lot of them have been right on the edge, especially with these worn tires and the heat cycles, but the true test comes now. Can Bennett do it?
He pulls away, green flag, back out. Already builds his advantage to 0.4 of a second. Alexis Newsom looking racy, but even more racy was Chris Fowler, who makes it 3 wide on the entry to turn 1. Brophy, what does he do to try and help his teammate or hurt his teammate here? Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin, they're running in 4th and 5th. Aaron Morgan, Tyler Graf, right behind them. Here comes Malechka, the pole sitter, to the inside of the 48 car. 2 laps to go. Henry Bennett leads by half a second.
Once again, Malechka the third's Achilles heel turn 4 exit. This time the bottom can't go up and get the full exit run. Now loses some more time, but you mentioned up towards the front. Bennett's in the driver's seat. It's just a matter of hoping things keep clean for him. No mistakes. Just get to the white flag and take the checker cleanly.
Bennett's teammate has done a great job. Kinsella up to 16th. White flag is out. The next flag ends the race here. And across the start-finish line comes Henry Bennett. He has been up and down. 2 third-place finishes on the season, Justin, but he's controlled the later portion of this race here in Motegi.
Ever since that pass in the midst of the dirty air after those drivers stayed out, he's been able to capitalize, and now it's just a matter of one final set of corners. What a dominating pace set by Bennett.
He's been the standout rookie, plenty of experience. It took 15 races. Henry Bennett finally wins in the Lionheart IndyCar Series here in the HyperX Twin Ring 200. It's a photo finish up and down through the grid, not out front. Bennett across the line and into HyperX victory lane. In the Rookie of the Year scrap, Jason Brophy finally gets some good results back under his belt. He started the season off very, very promisingly. Still plenty of opportunities to try and close the gap to the British Racing Green 07 machine. Henry Bennett, burn the house down. It is your time to shine. And I tell you what, no Adam Blocker. I didn't know if we would get a first-time winner. I kind of got an inkling, Justin. I thought it would be Robert Malechka from pole, but Henry Bennett, once he got out front, did not look back. A very long night for him has paid out 2 victories here in IndyCar racing.
A very impressive run throughout the entire night. He had the pace straight from qualifying. He's shown this pace throughout parts of the campaign, but tonight he just put it all together. Had the right moments of luck, had the right timings of strategies and passes, and in turn, had the right time to be able to push on forward and run away with this race win.
I think he's been waiting for the opportunity to burn the house down, and he takes his time and does it in style. Let's take a look then at your Carnox race results. The Adrenaline Motorsports red car in victory lane will help his chances in both the Drivers' Championship, the Rookie Championship, but in the Teams Championship, Jason Brophy, Connor Harrington, Joshua Chin, the private label Team Hype Machine across the line, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Tyler Graf matches his best finish on the season, finished 5th at Indianapolis, finished 5th here in Motegi. The pole sitter Malechka III, very strong and dominant early on, but once things got a little bit more difficult, some traffic to contend with, he slipped down through the field and was able to come across the line in 6th. Aaron Morgan, 7th. Good day for the Graphics LPM team. While for Mike Razmas, 23 positions gained. Incredible drive through the field for him. He comes across the line in 8th. With Matt Taylor for Alcantech Simulations NHR, plus 13 to finish in 9th. Tony Showen, one of his better qualifying performances, ends up in 10th, with Alexis Newsom then in 11th. Joe Branch, Michael O'Brien, 12th and 13th positions. Mike Rigney started up in the top 10, drops to 14th with Chris Fowler in 15th. Andrew Kinsella recovers, first from a disappointing qualifying performance, and then from an end-of-line penalty late in the race, plus 12 to 16th. Barrett Rolfe, always a hard charger, but only charging 8 places up to 17th. Matt Houston gambled early on. Gamble didn't pay off. He comes across in 18th with AJ Musselman, 19th, Adam Frazier to complete the top 20. Paul Jenkins 21st with Brian Beer 22nd. There you can see some of the margins between the cars finishing on the lead lap. Then you find the attrition, the cars that work themselves up through the field even after being damaged and down on pit road. Ricky Harding, Ron Hacker, Luis Gonzalez Nunez getting very valuable championship points. James Brandt involved in a number of issues here today. Phil Krause, well, he doesn't finish 2nd. He finishes in 27th position, but I'm sure Krause will be back and raring to go 7 days from now when we go short track racing in Iowa. Scott Holmes 28th, Dustin Warlow 29th with Chris Lanini 30th. Just a couple more cars. Ryan Otis, Jason Galvin, Brian Carey, Stefan Larkamp, and Chris Stover to complete the 35 starters. Fastest lap, 27.599, went to Henry Bennett in the closing stages. That was on the white flag lap. It's time to go to HyperX Victory Lane and to our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX product, visit hyperxgaming.com, and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15, for 15% off all orders. I think Henry Bennett is still burning the house down, at least his own house for the time being, so we'll wait to get that word with him. Justin, let's just sum up that race. Drivers had to contend with a brand new update to the car this morning. Not much time to practice, increased speed to deal with as well, which means increased dirty air. It got a bit sloppy at the end, but at the end of the day, up and down through the field, I talked about those movers and shakers, plenty of drivers taking advantage of what happened here.
Especially with a lot of the attrition coming into play, Mike Rasmus comes into mind as one of those drivers who, with all those restarts, was able to execute and just find the right line to charge on forward to get a plus 23 and be your biggest mover of the night. You can also put Andrew Kinsella in that grouping to be able to avoid all the incidents in front of him and around him to be able to leapfrog forward. So drivers were able to make some group passes when it came to these restarts, and that was so critical for drivers throughout the evening. Watch Good Third's the perfect example. You don't get some good momentum on the restart, you're going backwards, and he went backwards on several of those late race restarts.
Let's make our way down to HyperX Victory Lane, where I'm sure we have a very happy but a very tired Henry Bennett. Henry, you did the double here at Motegi, first in the DW12 in another competition earlier tonight, and now in this IR18. It took 15 races, but I'm sure this victory in this Lionheart IndyCar Series is pretty sweet for you.
Yeah, it's pretty unexpected, to be honest. I wasn't really expecting a win this season. The competition in this series is so fierce. But I did joke with the team before the race that it's Adam's first one of his away races, so it's fair game for anyone else. And I didn't expect to be the one to take the win, but yeah, really happy. And I think it's quite fitting that it's at Motegi, because I think way back in 2016, my first official open setup oval win was at Motegi. So yeah.
Plenty of history then with this victory. I do have to ask, on the restarts, we were a bit interested because usually the strategy is stay up on the outside, make sure no one can get the run on you, but you elected to give that space. You went to the inside, you really held the field a little bit longer than I think some were expecting, enabled you to build up that advantage given the amount of restarts that we had in the closing stages. Why exactly did you choose to do that?
Because from the lead, you want the inside for turn one, so there's no, and people can't go past you before the white line, I don't think anyway, from the lead. So there's no need to be at the wall really in the lead, and guys behind, they can do what they want. But so yeah, that was the idea of not starting up on the right hand wall. But yeah, as far as when I went, I was just trying to change it up each time so I wasn't predictable. I think the leader, it was going to be tough for Jason or who was behind me at the time to pass me, regardless of how I restarted. But yeah, I just didn't want to give away any chance or any sniff of a draft down the back straight. I think if at any time when it went green, if I had lost the lead, then it would have been almost impossible to get back.
How do you build from this now? Because of course, we mentioned it before, it's very early in the morning for you there on the other side of the pond. Not much time left in the season as well, but you have a pretty secure stranglehold in third in this championship. I'm sure now it's just pushing once more for victory. Maybe 7 days from now, you said that the team allowed you to win because Adam Blocker was trackside with NTT IndyCar Series competition. He'll be the same next week, so when we go racing in the cornfields, maybe a second victory in just a couple of weeks' time.
I mean, I was one of my favourite races, but short ovals on this new tyre have kind of been a weakness for me, so I look to do well there. But yeah, like you say, I think second and first are way out of reach now in the championship, so just solidifying P3, because that was such a tight battle before between more than 5 of us. I think just solidifying that and making it a comfortable run in to third in the championship would be brilliant for my first championship.
Congratulations, Henry, on this first victory. Looking forward to seeing you in 7 days' time.
Cheers.
So that was Henry Bennett, driver of the British Racing Green Machine. Let's make our way down then to the second step of the podium. Let's dial up the 88 car and Jason Brophy. Jason, it's your best finish in Lionheart competition, but at a race like this, it is so difficult to make passes at the front of the field. Was there anything you could have done in that stop and start last couple of laps to try and steal that victory away from Henry Bennett?
I think the only thing I could have done was just try and guess the restart. I would have had to literally guess and go before him and just get lucky enough to carry enough momentum that I could be there in one and compromise his line. But it was really difficult to time that restart. And if you guess wrong, you potentially stack up the whole field and wreck. So that was the danger of it.
And talk to us a little bit about how the race itself went, because new update this morning, plenty for you guys to try and get to grips with as drivers. You had success when the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship came here, and even in an open setup race, that was the way that unfolded was you struggled to even pass lap traffic. It seemed like in the thick of the pack, there was the opportunity to make moves past. You got +7 up to second in this race.
Yeah, you could make moves. I actually really liked it, especially at the beginning when it was cold. I think kind of some of it flipped. I expect it to be better when it was hot yesterday, and then they changed the tire model. I think it was really good when it's cold. I still think it was very hard to pass the leader. I think my best shot was if we caught lap traffic there, but caution to keep coming out just as we got toward thinking about pitting. 3 gallons left in the tank, something like that. So it was good. But I don't want to detract from Henry. I do think he was the fastest car. He had really good pace, short run. I started to figure it out there toward the end on the old tires, but he already has 2 seconds on you, so hats off to him. Really well done.
Well, and that kind of builds me to my next question is I don't want to be too mean, but you've kind of had a slide in recent weeks while Henry has kind of stepped up and been a bit more consistent in terms of the performances, kind of what we expected from him at the start when you were really doing well. In the battle for the Rookie Championship and even third in the Drivers' Championship, he's managed to build a bit of an advantage. What do you need to do in the closing part of the season? We know that you're always strong when we go to the speedways. 3 road courses mixed into that next final couple of rounds, though, so the likes of Iowa, Pocono, Chicagoland, and then our season finale, the double points at Auto Club. That's going to be crucial for you to try and close the gap to the 07.
Yep, if I want to have any chance, I need to beat him at Auto Club. I need him to have a bad race at Auto Club. That points difference is huge. And then hopefully, I feel a little more comfortable in the road courses now with this new tire. I feel like I can feel the limit a little better, so hopefully that'll improve my consistency there. I think Henry's still fast, so it's not like I'm gonna be flying up past him, but hopefully it can improve my finishes enough. And then I need good runs on the ovals. I really got to do really well on all the ovals. So tonight was pretty good for private label team hype car Ithaca, but you don't know. 4 ovals, 3 road courses I think now, so got to capitalize on every race I can.
And you're right, that a great day for you and the private label Team Hype machine, especially in that team championship. Congratulations on second, Jason. We'll see you in 7 days' time from Iowa.
Thank you very much.
So that was Jason Brophy, driver of the 88 machine. Let's now dial up the final step of the podium and one of our championship contenders in Connor Harrington. Connor, you were victorious 12 months ago when the IndyCar Series came to this very track, but a very different type of a race. You didn't qualify that well. You had to work your way up through the field. Ended up on the 3rd step of the podium, closing the gap very slightly to Adam Blocker, but because of the way that this championship works with drop weeks, it's really going to take an act of God for you to close that gap and to have a fighting chance, other than calamity for Blocker in that final double points race at Auto Club.
Yeah, tonight just a little bit on the back foot for qualifying. Didn't really get a whole lot of time this week to get comfortable with the car, and especially with the tire change. This morning didn't really help anything there, but a really good recovery drive up to P3. Able to get out of the midfield there and avoid any sort of crazy controversy in our private label team hype machine. So yeah, just a solid night. It's gaining in points, just solidifying P2 even more, and there's still a lot of racing to go, so you never know.
And we got 4 speedways and 3 road courses coming up. I do want to ask you, between Canadian Tire Motorsports Park, Road America, and Belle Isle, the streets of Detroit, which one are you most looking forward to? Because new tire model came to the roadside of this IR18, and rave reviews, I think, from a lot of people has really enabled a bit more slip in the car, a bit more drivability, the ability to throw the car around. I think Belle Isle might be a lot more fun than it was on the older tire model.
Well, we had a lot of success on the previous version of the tire in Open. We won. We beat Blocker there and some other really stiff competition. So, Belle Isle, Detroit. I remember when we ran it last year. I think I was the only person that was able to stay even remotely close to Adam, and and challenge him when we ran the streets of Detroit for the first time. So we're really looking forward to go racing there. I think that's a really good spot to make some ground. The new tire, we drove it in open this week. It's nice. It's definitely a little bit more forgiving and opens you up to push. Just a little bit kind of disappointing that still the multiple compounds aren't like totally in play yet. I think it's something that just needs a slight tweak, and then you might be looking at honestly probably one of the best cars in the service. But the road races have been really strong this year, and the oval races we've managed to not get destroyed. So we're feeling good.
And now, didn't go the way that maybe you would have wanted. I'm getting word that you only gained 2 points in the Drivers' Championship. The Teams' Championship, though, this is a mega result for you and the private label Team Hype guys. 2nd, 3rd, and 4th, opening up that advantage to the Adrenaline Motorsports guys. Looking pretty comfortable at this point in time. What's it been over the course of the season that's helped you guys be so consistent? Because I'm sure there's plenty of teamwork going into it.
Yeah, it's really the teamwork and the sharing of data between all of us, and especially now that Phil's on board as well. Josh, Jason, and Phil and myself, we've worked fantastic together. Really, just a lot of textbook team racing from us, and it's really shown. It's really great to have everybody on the squad to bounce ideas off of and run laps and figure out the best way to get around the racetrack. So, we want to keep pushing. We want to keep widening that gap. The double points race at the end, it always makes things a little funky and scary. So if we can sew it up by the time we get to Auto Club, that'd be a really good goal for us.
Congratulations on 3rd, Connor. See you in 7 days' time to go short track racing in Iowa.
Yep, thanks, guys.
So that was Connor Harrington. Apologies if there was any bad language in that we heard. But, wow, what a race, Justin. And Motegi is always so much fun. Not always the easiest, especially when you go out front, but having two ends of the racetrack be totally different to one another poses so many different challenges for the drivers. And now another challenge 7 days from now, short track racing in Iowa. I cannot wait. Adam Blocker will not be in attendance once more. Might we see another first-time Lionheart winner?
Well, qualifying is going to be very critical, I think, again for Iowa, because dirty air is huge at that track. It can be very difficult when it comes to some of the passing at that circuit as well. We've seen throughout the various divisions of Lionheart this year there. So in our words, Iowa could be a tricky race. If you see some good qualifying performances like tonight, we may see a lot of those drivers be contenders, but don't be surprised to see a lot of strategy gambles in that one.
It is time to say goodbye then from Twin Ring Motegi. 7 days from now, we will be back in action in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. We should take the time to thank the various partners that make all of this happen. For sim racers, the Butt Kicker Gamer 2 or Simulation Kit adds the missing driver-to-car connection, bringing more realism to your sessions. By accurately responding to in-game audio, you can feel the track like never before, providing increased vehicle handling and faster lap times. Are you ready for the most immersive experience in sim racing? For more information, visit thebuttkicker.com and don't forget to use the promo code LION2021 for 20% off all orders. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows that we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperxgaming.com and don't forget to use the promo code Lionheart15, that's LIONHRT15 for 15% off all orders.
The Sim Experience AccuForce Pro V2 is the premier professional simulation racing steering system. The key to its incredible realism is the groundbreaking direct drive motor control system, providing a driving experience that's second only to the real thing. For more information on the entire Sim Experience ecosystem, visit simexperience.com.
Minus 273 is the premier name in karting gloves. Their industry-leading gloves are super lightweight and durable, made of a breathable poly spandex. Whether you're a kart or a sim racer, Minus 273 gives you the control to reach victory lane. For more information on Minus 273's full line of gloves and apparel, visit minus273.biz and don't forget to use the promo code Minus 273 LHRS15 for 15% off all orders.
Looking for entertaining sim racing content? Look no further than the DMLC Racing channel. Follow former Lionheart Retro Series Driver of the Year Mark Cohn's racing escapades as he battles for wins and avoids wrecks with cat-like reflexes. Our ride and commentary sure to make you laugh, cry, or both. Follow along by subscribing to the DMLC Racing channel on YouTube or like his Facebook page at the DMLC Racing channel.
And it's not just them, but so many more that make all of this possible. To learn more about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series, visit lionheartracingseries.com. And to stay up to date with the latest comings and goings in the virtual paddock, make sure you join the Series Discord to stay connected with the teams and drivers. To stay connected with the series, you can follow them at social media at Lionheart Series across Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. ESTV has you covered for all your esports needs. Make sure you stay in touch with them across the social media, while RaceSpot TV has all your sim racing action covered, along with plenty of Lionheart action. Join us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube by hitting that red button and the bell next to it to get notified every single time we go live with the great sim racing series that we get to cover. It's been a busy week in Lionheart competition. Robert Malechka won at Pocono in Speedway competition on Monday. Henry Bennett visits HyperX Victory Lane for the first time tonight. Next week, it's another doubleheader. The Speedway Series heads to Iowa as well as the IndyCar Series. Join us on RaceSpot TV for all the action on Monday, September 20th and Wednesday, September 23rd. For now, though, on behalf of the entire team at RaceSpot TV, for my co-commentator Justin Prince, my name is Arjuna Kankipati. We'll see you next week for more IndyCar action.